Welcome to 90s Gay, where we take a deep dive into queer art and culture from the golden era of the 90s. In this three-part special, we're sitting down with none other than Darren Hayes, the voice of pop phenomenon Savage Garden, to talk about his brand new autobiography, why now was the right time to tell his story, what he hopes queer readers take away, and how therapy, pop stardom, and icons like Madonna and MJ shaped his journey. Honest, raw, and deeply human, this is part one with Darren Hayes. Let's go.
It's late, which I feel terrible about. Yeah.
That's very rock star of you. How dare you? How are you?
I'm well. Yeah, I'm in Brisbane, which is always really lovely. So it's my
How
hometown.
nice.
Yeah.
How nice. When was the last time you were in Brisbane? Was it on the last tour? Would that be the last time you were home?
For the Masked Singer, actually.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
Crazy. Well, so good to be talking to you today.
Me too.
First of all, I wanted to say a huge congratulations on the release of Unlovable. I wanted to start by asking how you're feeling in this moment. It's such a huge thing to release, such a deeply personal piece of work. How does it feel to have it out there in the world?
It feels like a burden set down in a lot of ways. I think you never realize, when you write something so personal, it's so different to music, writing a book. There's a catharsis is such a cliche, but it really is. Like a lot of the book um, sets down a lot of shame and a lot of pain and closes the loop on, I think, the journey of a lot of healing and stuff that I'd been going through
Mm,
in my life, and just having written it in a narrative sense, um, it sort of closes that chapter and neatly kind of puts a lock on it, and it's done. So
yeah.
that feels really lovely. Like I don't have to really revisit some of that anymore. Not
Yeah,
that
I
I
imagine.
can't talk about it, but yeah, that it's sort of, oh, that's finally set down, and there's a weight off my shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you're in such a unique position at the moment because there would be the joy and elation of the release of this major project, but then at the same time, the need to reopen and examine the old wounds and talk about them at length in interviews, at book launches. How did you mentally prepare for this moment? I imagine that would have been.
Yeah, I think, going through the writing process, it's a long period of time. It took a year,
Right.
and halfway through, I actually talk about this in the book. I did end up having to go back into therapy because I kind of couldn't work out why I felt depressed.
Right.
And of course, it makes sense because I was reopening wounds. So part of the process of writing the book was healing, and it did prepare me, I think, for uh, you know being so vulnerable with people. So now I feel not desensitized, but doing so many book signings and in conversation with people. I'm a very open person anyway. I have a very open heart. I cry if I need to cry. If things still bring up emotional or triggering memories, I show that to people. But that's kind of
Mm.
the whole point of the book as well. So none of it's been re-traumatizing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's good news. The thing
Hmm.
that struck me about the book was how relatable it was. You don't normally expect a pop star's memoir to be relatable. And while the readers, or like myself, I know I can't relate to number one hits all over the world or duetting with Pavarotti, but there's so much in the book that is relatable, especially for queer readers, whether it be bullying, the struggling with sexual identity, broken abusive home, depression, beautiful relationships ending, having to start over again, and finding yourself all over again. Um, what do you hope that queer readers take away from your story?
I'm so glad you said that. Oh God, so many things. Number one, that we're resilient, and that the queer experience, it is very unique. You know, we aren't just this cookie cutter template where you can take, say, like a Hallmark movie or some sort of rom-com that
Mm,
we've been raised on,
mm,
and this fantasy that we've all been fed from Hollywood, and just switch it out for two, couples that are queer,
sure.
because it's so unique. A lot of the things that are sold as fantasy, first of all, they don't apply to cis heterosexual couples either, but the queer experience is deeply rooted in a very recent history of so much torment and shame, and um, just a struggle for basic human rights and existence. So to have all of that in the background and the history of who we are, it's a wonder sometimes that we've been able to sort of have any sort of self-esteem
Yeah, to make
at
it out the
all.
other side and to flourish, yeah, is a miracle.
Yeah. And I know that that is, thankfully, every generation it gets easier and easier and easier. But at the same time, here we are as two sort of like, uh, white presenting males who on the surface probably have it in many ways easier than a lot of people in our community.
Mm,
Um, we can choose to um, reveal or mask our sexuality at various times in our lives if we have to, if we feel like
yeah,
we're in
for
danger or
safety,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
But we live in a time where trans people, especially black, trans women, are literally being murdered. You know, and so to talk about mental health and how that affects, being queer, I think it's important that it's just a topic that is out there, because it just keeps the conversation going and reminds people that there's still so much more work to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so important for it to be out there, and the release of the book is playing a big part in that now. So thank you for that. Um, the memoir delves into such deeply personal territory. When did you decide to write it, and what made you decide that now was the right time to share your story?
Um, I mean, from an external point of view, um, my last album, I think, was sort of this very rebellious phase. I think Homosexual was just like, I stopped caring what people thought of me. I stopped worrying about carrying around any of the internalized shame that I
Mhm.
had. Years too late. I mean, I would say that it's probably, my last album was really the first time I really, really came out. Even though I'd been married to a man for, I don't know, almost 2 decades. I'd played Mardi Gras once, all those things. I think that 2023 was me realizing that, man, there's a lot of stuff that I really hadn't dealt with. There'd been a lot of internalized shame around being gay, shame around the way that I'd grown up, and the violence and the bullying that had occurred at school, but certainly the domestic violence and the experiences that my mom and my siblings experienced as children, that I had subconsciously still felt was embarrassing.
Mm,
And in doing press for that last record, I started openly talking about it, and I got two publishers approach me and say, would you be interested in telling that story?
Mm,
Which which I totally was ready. I was ready to do that, to sort of set down just there was a lot of pain that was still in my life that I wasn't even really aware of. So I think that was the inciting incident, if you call it. I don't think I ever would have written a traditional celebrity memoir. I'm not someone that has gossipy tales, or I joke about it, but I've met Kylie a few times, but I don't have a phone number. I'm not that person. I'm
sure.
not that famous person, but I am someone that uh, has had a public life and became a pop star to sort of escape a lot of pain, and it was time to sort of deal with that pain and put it down.
Mm. Are you an avid
Mm.
reader yourself? Were there any books or memoirs that you've read through your lifetime that you found really inspiring?
I do love biographies, actually. The one book that I used as somewhat of a um, maybe a litmus test was Carrie Fisher's Wishful Drinking.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever had a chance to look at that, but Carrie Fisher, obviously from Star Wars, but to me, she's just really funny writer and comedian.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I loved how candid she was in her book, and then when she turned that into a stand-up show, I always thought if I ever wrote a book, it would be sort of like that.
Yeah.
Um, I tend to not read fiction. I tend to read a lot of books that are, gosh, for want of a better word, probably self-help books, or books that are about psychology, or about um, I do love autobiographies. Like I read Lauren Bacall's. This is very old, but Lauren Bacall's autobiography, which I adored. I read. Oh, gosh, I think it's called. I wish my mum was dead. I think it's called that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right. I think I got the title wrong, but there's a few I read recently before I started mine, just to kind of like get my head around, like, how are people writing memoirs these days? Um, and then I sort of threw all that out the window and just wrote it the way that I wanted to anyway.
Mm. At what age did you start unpacking the childhood experiences that you had? And how was that process of, um, you spoke about therapy. I'm assuming that's something that's
Yeah.
been a present thing in your life over the years. Was there any sort of opening the floodgates moment at a point in your life where you were forced to deal with something that had been buried down?
Yeah, I kept my childhood a secret until I was um, 19. I told my first ever girlfriend,
Hmm.
um, yeah, uh, that my dad hits my mom, or used to hit my mom, and that was incredibly. It felt like such a betrayal, which is how abuse works. You're. It's almost like you're in a cult, because the victims feel so embarrassed and so ashamed about what's happened to them that
Yeah.
you hide it from the whole world.
Yeah.
And in my life, anyone who ever found out that my dad was abusing my mum was chased out of our lives, or physically beaten,
Sure.
threatened, had their lives threatened, were chased out of our lives. So I learned very quickly that when someone found out about it, they were gone. So couldn't tell anyone. But it was around the release of Affirmation, so 1999, I guess I was around 26, that I went into a therapy session, because I was suicidal. My depression was so bad that my therapist at the time was coming into my bedroom every day. My therapist, sorry, my assistant every day was coming into my bedroom, because if I wasn't working, I just didn't get out of bed. And she was checking to see if I was alive.
Hmm.
And she sensed that I was suicidal. And she had a really hard conversation with me and just said, I'm really worried that you're going to do something to yourself. And it was not great. It felt like an intervention, and I was really pissed off at the time. I felt like it was such an invasion of privacy, and uh, but I reluctantly went to see a therapist, and I write about this in the book. He asked me about my childhood, and I was very candid about it. You know, I'd written the song Affirmation, where I said, I believe my parents did the best job they knew how to do. Complete lie. Lying to myself, you know. Had a huge chip on my shoulder. I was just like, look, yeah, I had it tough, but I survived. I've forgiven my parents. And he was like, well, describe tough. And I described some of the things that happened to me as a child, and his face kind of turned white. And he said, did you ever cry about this stuff? And I was like, no, of course not. You know, very sort of Australian, super gay, but also very toxically masculine about it all.
Right.
And then he asked that question that I wrote about in the book. He just said, did you ever feel safe as a child? And that just broke me. Because I didn't. And I didn't know that you were supposed to. And I burst into tears. I remember just became jelly. And he just said, you know, you were supposed to feel safe. Not only did I not feel safe as a child, but I didn't feel safe then. I think I probably only have felt safe in the last 2 years. It's
Wow.
taken me that,
Yeah.
yeah, taken me that long. Most of my career had been an attempt to become indestructible. I thought if I became a pop star, I would be the most intense version of what good little gay boys do, which is become perfect students, super well behaved, high achievers. Mummy or daddy loves me, teachers love me, you know, we're neat, we're organized, we go to the gym, we do, you know, we're great, we're great. And you have to ask yourself why. And it's because there's this wonderful book for gay men of my generation called The Velvet Rage, which suggests it's because, right? It suggests because deep down inside, we feel that we're repulsive, but we were treated as though we were repulsive from a very young age, where our parents and the people around us sensed that there was something different about us. And it was never communicated. Maybe they never even sensed it, could articulate it,
An
but we
underlying feeling.
felt it.
Yeah.
We felt, oh, there's something about me that's unlovable. So I'm going to distract you. If you ever find out that thing about me, you'll hate me, you'll reject me. And for a child who looks upon their parents as the whole world, parents are gods. And for your God to reject you is death. So you just do anything within your power to become lovable, which is to be perfect.
Yeah.
And to just one step over to the right and become perfect. And I did the most extreme version of it, which was to become really famous and really rich.
Yeah. It's like that overachiever syndrome.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought if I could do that, people would love me. It would rid me of that ick, that feeling that I felt inside, and ultimately, you know, my father would finally love me, and everything would be perfect. But of course,
Don't
it's a
work that
recipe
way.
for disaster.
Yeah.
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 And I guess second to that as well, music also enabled an escape, that escapism for you. And the dreams of being a pop star, that fantasy that you turned into a reality, that was a massive um, fantasy and escapism that you were able to create when you kind of envisioned what could be for you. It's one thing to have that dream, but then I guess it's another thing to be able to make good on it. When did you realize that you had a musical talent and a musical gift?
Well, I decided that I would be famous at 15. I just decided that. I saw Michael Jackson in concert and just knew that that was the only way I was going to survive in this world.
Yeah, you saw
I
the
knew I was
pathway.
so, pardon me?
You saw the pathway.
Yeah, I just knew that I was so fragile and made of porcelain that I needed to be indestructible. And I looked at him on stage, and it was in 1987, and he was a force of nature. It was at the height of his fame. He was like an Olympic athlete. He There was like a hurricane inside him that he would unleash, but just with like the point of a finger or a kick of a leg. So much kinetic energy that he would wield, and you only saw a fingernail of it, but you could sense uh, almost a rage actually within him. I remember reading a review of the Bad album,
Mm.
and it was in Time magazine at the time, and it talked about this rage within Michael Jackson. And I identified something within him. I couldn't have known it at the time. I didn't know, but obviously we had the same father. You know, his father beat him mercilessly when he was a kid. He was abused by his father. There was a deep sadness in his eyes.
Mm.
But when he was on stage, he was indestructible, completely in control, and a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'll just be that. I'll just become that. I'm not saying I was as talented, but I had the same drive, the
Yeah.
same wish fulfillment as him and Madonna.
It's crazy to think, yeah, that he built that for himself as his own armor from his situation as well. Isn't
Yeah,
it wild to think of it, that you recognize something in him that, yeah, you wouldn't have known that at the time or what that was, but
Could, couldn't have known,
yeah,
no. But there was that, and the same thing with Madonna. I think it's that it's crazy how powerful a parent's neglect or absence can create upon you. I know with Madonna, it was just, that black hole of not having a mother created such a desire to be loved. No one could
yeah,
ever fill it for her.
yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to interview her, but she is somebody who, when you're in her presence, you can't help but be drawn in. She's still,
Magnetizing, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but not necessarily in in her origin story is not necessarily a happy one.
No,
Yeah, I'm grateful now that she has children, and she has other sources of love to show her that it's not just applause and external validation. That she has a sense of worth, and she's been able to complete this circle, because um, again, I totally recognize that unquenchable, insatiable, ferocious desire to just have more, 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 more love. I I reconciled it eventually, but it took me a long time.
a long
Yeah,
time to get there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap on part one with Darren Hayes, from healing through therapy to the power of queer storytelling and pop star survival. And we're only just getting started. In part two, Darren takes us behind the rise of Savage Garden, breaking America and the industry politics that tried to keep him in the closet. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes, follow us on Instagram at 90sgay, and we'll see you next time.